why would you want to get a PS5 versus an Xbox Series X? All right, hey everyone, Gaming with Passion episode, let's say 6. Today we're going to talk about a lot of things. Most importantly, after last week's episode talking about the Xbox Series X version 2, we're getting the PS5 version 2 news. I think it dropped like today. So that will be a whole topic of why would you want to get a PS5 versus an Xbox Series X. And in general, let's just start off as always at the top of the show, what I've been doing lately, what I've been playing. I started busting out my Analog Pocket, which is this very nice streamlined Game Boy thing that can play a lot of handheld games. I've booted up Yu-Gi-Oh! Rechef of Destruction, which is a very hard Game Boy Advanced Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, and I played a lot of it when I was a kid. I think I ended up losing my copy, so I lost my save progress, bought it later on, never ended up playing it again. So looking forward to that. It's a huge grind, much like Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories on PS1. But it has really nice graphics, especially with a backlit Game Boy. I was looking at it and starting to play through, and Game Boy Advance holds up really well in my opinion. So I've been playing some of that. Played a little bit of 360 last week as well. I played with my wife this Cars 2, the video game. And I've heard things before about the Cars video games being pretty solid. Kart racers or just racing games in general, arcade racing games. And I already had the second one, so we decided to play it. A lot of fun. There's like a tutorial. They kind of incentivize you and gamify everything by giving you like reward points for doing tutorials. There's a lot of different game modes, a lot of different cars, a lot of different things to do. So can really see myself actually diving quite a bit into that Cars game, which is kind of cool. And me and the wife get to play something a little bit different. And then the other thing I've been playing lately is a bunch of Rise of Nightmares, which is the Kinect horror game, which there will be a video coming out for that very soon, so I'm not going to touch on it too much, but this game is really, really, really surprising me. It is a lot of fun. The controls are not perfect, but it is definitely a horror game playing with the loud music. There's a lot of jump scares, but it's not too horror-y. Like, I'm not a big fan of really scary movies, but the game is really solid. I'm having a lot of fun. The design of the enemies are awesome. The environment is really fun to explore, and just an all-around amazing game. So look forward to that review coming soon as well. And I think that was primarily what I've been playing video game-wise. I think I started to boot up Final Fantasy IV on my PC to start playing that, so I may play that a little bit. Final Fantasy IV being one of the few Final Fantasy games I still have not played or even started. So looking forward to jump into some gameplay there. As every week with Gaming with Passion, let's talk about a game I'm really passionate about. And this week's game, which, if I ever start to repeat, somebody can put in the comments if people are keeping track, because I honestly don't know which games I've already talked about. I'm just talking about games I like, and there's only so many of those. So this week we have Red Faction Guerrilla. Not the first Red Faction game, but my favorite Red Faction game, and the only one I've actually completed. I borrowed this from a friend when the 360 was in its heyday. Didn't really know what to expect. I think I saw a friend play a few minutes of it and just really got into it. I think it was around the time I had been playing like Fallout 3, so I was looking for something like open world and, something that I can spend a lot of time in high school. I had a lot of free time that I liked to play video games, and I wanted games that were like long and fun. So this game is a third-person shooter, which I also enjoy more than first-person shooters. And what a lot of people don't know about it is the online for this game was super, super fun. There's a lot of unique weapons in this game that play a lot differently than other shooters. And the main mechanic of the game is that you destroy things. It was built with a specific, the Havoc engine back in the day, and it was designed to just make like everything destroyable, which is super cool. So even in the multiplayer itself, like there's buildings that can be destroyed, and you can topple the building onto somebody and kill them. You can ram through the buildings. So let me explain. There's a lot of cool weapons. One weapon just disintegrates whatever it touches, whether it's another player or building or something like that, bridge, a vehicle. So that is super fun to play with. And then you get these like backpacks, and the backpacks all have abilities as well. There's one that makes you fast, one that makes you invisible, one that makes you charge forward, charge up. There's a jetpack one. So very similar to like later games like Halo, where they added kind of similar things like backpacks and different abilities. But this game did it pretty early on, and it did it in a really, really fun way. And there's also a weapon that basically shoots saw blades, and it's really hard to hit with, but when you hit with somebody, you pretty much one-shot them. Really, really fun with that. The campaign itself, the story-wise, I'm not a huge fan of. There are a lot of missions. There are destroy missions, like I said, since the engine is so focused on interactable and destroyable things. You'll have to use like explosives to blow up a building, and a certain amount of ammo and a certain amount of mines and all this different stuff. So that's pretty cool. There was a lot of like drive missions, which I'm not a huge fan of, like drive from location A to B in this amount of time. But what's cool about this game, there's a ton of collectibles and just a lot of places to explore. The whole game is like a faction war, red faction, right? So you have to like invade other areas, destroy a bunch of the enemies, and take over the areas. You know, Again, probably not one of the best open world games ever, but definitely different. And if you enjoy open world games, I think this is a highly underrated open world game that you should definitely check out. And they actually redid this game. It was called Red Faction Guerrilla Remastered because it takes place on Mars. So instead of remastered, it's remastered. Came out on PS4 and I think Xbox One as well. That's kind of the strictly better version of the game. Definitely pick it up on that if you have the opportunity. I think it's still like $20, but you can get this version for probably like $5 if you want it. So I own a sealed copy of it that one day I'll probably get graded, just being one of my favorite games on the system. And the newer version, you can party up with some friends. The servers are still online and, grind some of the achievements, just have a ball. I highly, highly recommend that. So that is this week's passion game, which I do love. So now I guess let's transition over to the topic of this video. So PlayStation just announced that their like next generation of the PS5, it's a little bit smaller than the previous version, which is really huge. I think even the new version is still pretty large, but it still has the same performance. They're saying it has the same performance, but it's smaller. And they also show in the ad, which I think is a direct jab at Microsoft, that there are two versions. There's a digital version that's a little bit narrower because there's no need for a disc tray, and then there's a disc tray version available as well. So I think they really saw the backlash from Microsoft's announcement. So now we have to discuss the topic of, okay, so you like to play physical video games. You can either buy the Xbox Series X that still have the disc drives, and I think going forward we'll have access to play the games, but the caveat being, if Microsoft is not selling Xboxes anymore that have disc trays, are they even going to bother publishing physical versions of their games? And if they do, for how long? Because I would imagine maybe for a year or so they'll still produce some physical discs, but after a while there's really no reason, right? I mean, they're just going to try to get their fans to buy the discless Xbox Series X or Xbox Series S, whatever you want to call it. So that's one thing. PlayStation is saying, okay, we still have discs, so that at least for a few more years, probably they're planning on making physical discs. So that's something to consider. I know I just said in the last video I was planning on getting the Xbox Series X. Now I'm thinking about it a little bit because of this disc situation. I think for me, being a person that plays more Xbox games in general, even Xbox One versus PS4 games, I think Xbox One versions of games are even cheaper than PS4. I think I'll probably still go with the Series X. There are some exclusives here and there, but again, at the end of the day, you got to remember, at the end of a generation of consoles, there are usually just not that many exclusives that make it worth it. I want to play Demon's Souls. I want to play the new Final Fantasy. There's like a few things here and there, but I don't think it's enough to really keep me from buying the Xbox Series X. And I think they're a little bit cheaper. I think the PlayStation might be $100 more, but they may have changed. But this has been on my mind for a while. and I want to hear what everybody has to say about it. I think I brought up a few good points, but in general, I think as the generations of video games go on, there's less of a reason to go die hard one or the other. I want to say 99% of games are on both systems, so that doesn't really do anything. Um, Xbox has Game Pass, whereas PlayStation really doesn't have a feature like that. But again, if you got Xbox Game Pass, you could have a digital Xbox and it wouldn't be that much of an issue. Xbox games you can play on PC as well if you have PC Game Pass, or there's different things you can do with that as well. That's another feature that Sony doesn't seem to have right now. Um, so, yeah, who knows? Hopefully, in the near future, I'll have one or the other, and then we can talk about it. I think as far as my retro gaming collection and my previous systems, I'm slowing way down. I think for me, I'm gonna really focus on 360 and really offload like a lot of other things. Like I mentioned, I'm selling off a lot of my collections, even my PS4 collection. I have a lot of rare, valuable games, but most of them don't really appeal to me because the games are just limited releases. They're not necessarily that fun. So I'm kind of selling a bunch of them. 360 games, I just like to explore what the system had. I think making videos about those types of games makes me more happy regardless if the videos are getting views or not. I think you guys are really enjoying them anyway. But this Connect series is going to go on for a while. I do plan on eventually completing the Connect library, which shouldn't be that hard to do. But I do have a PS3 collection as well, which I'll probably end up getting rid of. And it probably just makes logical sense to have primarily 360 collection, some Xbox One games, some Series X games, and maybe that's just how it'll be. And then I'll have my PS4, which also has a pretty big library. And then from then on, going back even further, I have my DS collection and my Game Boy Advance collection, which have a lot of memories and nostalgia for me. So those are kind of the ones where I'm focusing on. Whereas I had a Sega Genesis collection that I'm pretty much selling most of because the nostalgia is just not there anymore. And I think most of those games have superior versions elsewhere. So I do have one video also coming up, which you can look forward to, which will be exploring one of the first video games I've ever played. It's a very old game, older than you would expect. So I'm really curious about capturing my immediate reaction to playing that game and my thoughts, what memories it brings back. Does the game hold up in my mind and all that stuff, because I think it's going to be a super interesting video. So stay tuned for that. And as always, if you have any ideas for topics on future Gaming with Passion episodes, let me know. Until the next video, guys, peace out.